You're going to Kharasha to the Hager of the Rebbe's father. Not for you.
If the Rebbe is not going, then...
Pardon? If the Rebbe is not going, the chair is not completely in the middle. I mean, it is in the middle, but in the over there you have to adjust the camera. Heint is the dog, as an old Chassid used to say. Heint is the dog.
Yeah?
Today is the day. Find I waste so much time, you see how morning. See how the Rebbe's work day and night, The Rebbe slept an hour and a half maybe. Constantly working on thinking, helping people, learning come here 2 hours in the morning, learn a little, and the rest. So this is what I'm thinking. You're supposed to serve Hashem, do everything for Hashem. To me, it's just I can't see myself sitting and learning all day long. It's just overwhelming,
What means all? What means all Malchus Shamayim?
You accept upon yourself
A yoke?
yoke. You know what the yoke is when you have a horse. You put this thing around the neck there, and you lock it in so the horse can slap,
This is what you have to do in Yiddish, right?
Simple. It's a madriga, they say in America, I need some time for myself, relax, listen to music, read something.
Who is Shlomo Litzman on the group? It's your son?
My oldest son.
It's come here sometimes?
Comes
Coming
in
for
chocolates.
bringing, it's never comes from sharing.
Comes in chocolates. You know who this young man is?
It's your son, yeah?
Favorite.
Favorite?
this till Pesach, snow, all the time.
It's 4 hours drive from the Canadian Rocky Mountains. And like 2-3 years ago, Pesach, came such a big snowstorm. Yeah, Pesach, you couldn't get your shoe. And there's no direct flight over the snow, so.
How long is the flight?
There are 2 flights. The minimum time is about 5-6 hours. It's almost as far as California. And this indoor mall, the city has 1 million people, and the mall has 30 million visitors a year. It's a piece of art in itself. It's beautiful. They have an indoor swimming pool for 5,000 people. And they have
Keep yourself
it's
is
coming.
coming. But this area keep it there. You wouldn't have come. I wouldn't have had some of it. Thank you for coming.
Snuck any other day today? Thought you could fool us. No.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. We're up to page 146. Or 145. 145, yeah. Ayin Gimel, column 2. The Nakud that we learned in the first shir yesterday, Matoivu, of Madmaima Matoivu, is the purpose of the souls coming down was to go from being a tzaddik to being a Baal Tshuva. What is Tshuva? Tshuva exists on 3 levels. The first they call Tshuva Tata, the basic level, which is what he calls Sur Meira. Sur Meira means the person goes away from all forms of Ra. Ra means brokenness, negativity, toxicity, whatever it is in a person's life. That includes remorse, regret. It includes uprooting his will, his desire from the Ra, because he doesn't want to be separated from the oneness. That tshuva is expressed in davening, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu, that Hashem becomes Elokeinu, ours. Like he says in Parshas Vayelech, Haloi al ki'ena lekai bekirbi mitzauni ara sa'ela. The Ra comes from the fact that Elokai is not bekirbi, avoneseichem avdilim beinechem lebein Elokeichem. That every avon comes from the fact that there's a sense of separation, and it creates a separation. It intensifies the sense of separation. And only by Elokeinu do we have all these terms, Elokai, Elokeinu, Elokeichem, making it personal, because it represents tzimtzum, a malik al-alman, tzimtzum shchinasa, for it to be revealed like the teacher. In order to reveal the information in a way that's relatable to the experience of the student and his consciousness, he must condense it and limit it. That's why Elokim can become Elokeinu, Elokeichem, Elokai, etc. Personal, individual. And as he explains, that the difference is never histalkus or hispashtus, and godliness, it's not if he's here or not here. The question is, if it's helim or gilui. Helim means how concealed it is, or how exposed it is, how much the person can perceive it. The relationship is always there. Elokai bekirbi means that the remedy for Ra is to understand, to appreciate the Elokai in me. That's the first state of tshuva. This maimer in Likutei Torah, the maimorim of the Balatanya, are mixed in with a lot of footnotes of his grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek was the grandson of the Balatanya. Tanya's daughter's name was Rebbetzin Dver Leah, and she passed away very young, and he raised his grandson, her son, Menachem Mendel, the Tzemach Tzedek. And then later he became the 3rd Chabad Rebbe after the passing of the Mittler Rebbe, Reb Dov Ber, who was a son of the Balatanya. He was a grandson and a son-in-law of the Mittler Rebbe. When he gave the Likutei Torah to publish in the year Tafresh Ches, I think it was, 1848, so he wrote a lot of footnotes on the Maimorim, in parentheses and in brackets, sometimes not even in parentheses. A lot of the references about Mekaymis to other Maimorim. So they're printed together. This Maimer has an extraordinary amount of commentary with the Tzemach Tzedek. It actually is more than the original Maimer, I think. Because there were different writers, so you can go back to the original manuscript so you could see right away what the Tzemach Tzedek added and what not, because sometimes it's not so clear. But because, for example, this Maimer, you have a transcript from the Balatanya's son, Reb Moshe. You have a transcript from the Balatanya's son, the Mittler Rebbe. You have the transcript in Likutei Torah that was written by his brother, the Maharil, Rabbi Yehuda Leib, and he only wrote his Hagos on one of them. So when you go back to the other ones, you see what the Alter Rebbe said, so you know right away what was the Hagos. So this Maimer has a unique amount of the Hagos of the Tzemach Tzedek. No. The others are, for example, this is a Maimer from Tavkuf Samach Beis, Bolok Tavkuf Samach Beis, 1802. So there's a set Mamori Admor Azakin, so Tavkuf Samach Beis has another 2 transcripts of this Maimer that were written by 2 different people. So you had sometimes one Maimer that was written by 2 people or 3 people, sometimes 4 people, sometimes 5 people. Everybody wrote their own transcript based on what they heard, their memory of it. So obviously the theme is very similar always, but you see differences. But you could see immediately what the structure was, what he said, what was the teichen, and so forth. This Maimer has a tremendous amount of Hagos, but he didn't put them in parentheses. So sometimes it's hard to know. You know the original transcript, you know. I'm just bavarening because the Hagos go to whole complicated sugyas in this. For example, now there's a Hagah that begins and it continues a very long time. Huh? A lot of them he reviewed, yeah. I don't know if all of them he reviewed, but it says on the front page that he reviewed many of them. He didn't write them, but he reviewed them, just to agree. Most by Mariam al-Lakut Torah were written by his brother. The Balatanya had a brother, his name was Rabbi Yehuda Leib. He's known as the Maharil. He has a sefer called Shalsa Chuvas Maharil. He was a big gon, he was a brother, a younger brother of the Balatanya. Rabbi Yehuda Leib was his name. They call him the Maharil. That I don't know. I think sometimes he read and sometimes he didn't. I don't know if there's one klal. But a lot of them, not all of them, but he says in the front, look at the Torah when he gave it to her, that a lot of them, his grandfather looked at them and, to give his haskama that it was fine, even though he didn't write it. The only thing that he wrote himself was the Tanya and the Shulchan Aruch and Shalsa Chuvas, answers and letters to people. And there's a few other things that he wrote. So Maimon Torah, it says from his Ksav Yad. But mostly Torah, look at the Torah, most Maimonim were written by a brother or children or grandchildren or grandson or Chassidim. Okay. So here there's a long Hagah, a very long Hagah, till the second level of Tshuva. It starts from the parentheses. It actually starts with the parentheses. Ach tzarech loymar, right in the middle of Ayin Gimel. And it goes all the way to 146, the bottom of column 1. If you go to 146, the bottom of column 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 lines from the bottom, v'hatshuva hashenis. The Hagah ends with the words melavushim atzayim ein sham. It goes hatshuva hashenis, the second shuva. You see? I think 9 lines from the bottom, 146. So he finished the short explanation on the first shuva, mamalik alalman, Elokai Bekirbi. Elokai Bekirbi, as we explained yesterday, he goes to Vatshuva Hashenis. Vatshuva Hashenis, Yatshuva B'chinas Haseitov. The second step of Tshuva is what we call Haseitov. First we spoke about Sur Meira. Pasuk says in Tehillim, Lamed Dalet, Sur Meira, right? Mia Isha Chafetz Chayim, Oyev Yomim Liris Tov. Mitzor l'shoincha meiros v'sechem medaber mirma. Sur meira v'asei toiv bakei shalem v'ratfeyu. Who is the man who desires life, who wants to see good during his days? He loves his days to see good. Protect your tongue from ra, from negativity, and your lips from speaking deceitfully. And of course that made it into Shemona Esrei, the end of Shemona Esrei, Elekai, Mitzor l'shoincha meira usvasai. Midaber mirma, protect my language from negativity, from bad, from gossip, slander, and negative talk, and usvasai, my lips, from speaking deceptively, mirma, deceitfully. And then the Tehillim continues, Sur meira v'asei toiv, bakei shalom v'ratfeyu. Sur meira means turn away, sur, go away, turn away from ra, from all forms of negativity. Engage, I say, do good. Seek out peace, shalom. Seek, look for shalom, and pursue it, chase it. So the Balatanya sees this as 3 states of tshuva. There's the tshuva hashishayna, he called Sur Meira, and now this tshuva hashenis is Hasei Tov. Dahainu. Afal pishu Sur Meira betachlis. Sometimes a person is very disciplined to stay away from Ra. But what's missing is in the positivity, in the Asay Tov. He may do things, but the le'ageyes atzmai, to go the extra mile. I know atzlus. There's a certain sense of laziness or apathy. Surmei Ra, a person may be very disciplined in. I don't do certain things. Sometimes it comes easier for certain people. But there's still a certain, what could be missing is in the Asay Tov. Just like you have sometimes in a different relationships between people. So there's no tightness, there's nothing bad going on, but there's nothing good going on. Not doing Ra is a good thing. It's the basics. You know what I mean? If you're hurting me and you're harming me, it's not going to work. But then there's something else. There's nothing good. There's nothing positive going on. I can't complain. You're not doing anything. You're not doing anything wrong. But there's no fire. There's no electricity. There's nothing positive. There's no passion. There's no interest. There's no enthusiasm. Same is true in a relationship with Hashem. Person could be surmei Ra. Others, I don't do. I'm nizam. I'm a good guy. You can't point anything. But there's like a certain detachment, what he calls here atzlus. Atzlus is not just laziness, but it's like indifference. Laziness means just you'll never go the extra mile. The yaleageyes atzmai, the koch, the toil, the yagia, b'teiro b'tefil. Al zanemar ein eisei tov ein gam echad. And this is the intimated the pasuk in Tehillim kapitel Yudalid ein eisei tov ein gam echad. So Matzeich LeDavid Amar Novel Beliboy. Ein Elakim Ishchisu Isivu Avel Ein Eisetoiv, and then he says Hakol Sar Yachtov Nalachu Ein Eisetoiv Ein Gamechad. So the Parshas he's speaking about over there those who destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. Lamnatzeich LeDavid. It's Tehillim Kapitel Yudalid. Amar Novel Beliboy Ein Elakim. The novel, the disgusting one, said there's no God, nobody does good. Hakol Sar Yachtov. Everyone went off together. Nalachu. They have become decomposed. Ein eisei tov ein gam echad. There's nobody to do good, not even one, not even that one person who looks like he's a good guy. Is ein eisei tov. So al pi pshat, the pasuk, the Hillim is very sharp. It's not speaking about a novel, but like every pasuk, it exists on many layers. He says ein eisei tov ein gam echad is even that one person who's surmei Ra. But what's sometimes missing is in the Eisei Tov, in the positive connection, in the positive relationship. Just that I don't do, that I could go on the checklist and say, I don't do anything bad, fine. It's the basics, it's a good thing. It's the basic level. But then there's something, but is there a relationship? In Asei Tov, is there a positive connection? Is there a koch in the relationship? An electricity in the relationship? Is the relationship on fire? Or it's just I'm lazy, I'm atzlos, I'm indifferent, I'm apathetic. There's no geschmack. And where do you see that? You see it in the yagia. If you go the extra mile, just to do things to be yoitz, I'm not really interested. I just have to checklist. So even sometimes in that echad, who's the good guy, ein eisei tov, what's missing is in the Asei Tov. That's the second step, Asei Tov. Surmei Ra and Asei Tov. Here there's weiter a long hagafnet Tzemach Tzedek. You see right away goes off to Mekoides and Kabbalah explaining exactly what his father meant. And this goes till the next column, around 10 lines from the top. The line starts Haramaz V'doik. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Around 12 lines from the top, column 2, 146. The line starts Haramaz, right? Befidush Haramaz. Reb Moshe Zakuti is discussing a pirush of Moshe Zakuti on the Zoya. V'doik. Zay medayik. The Maimah continues. These are like parentheses. V'hine ma shalamayla b'madrega. Whatever is higher in madrega, whatever is higher in that level, whether you're talking about a person or a soul, or generally anything that's in a higher place, sham habgam yoser. Over there, the blemish is always deeper. What do we mean? What do you mean you're higher, the blemish? Pirush. Shemisha nishmasai gavaya. Somebody whose neshama is more lofty, as a poigim hachet, bihibotloi mivasei toiv, v'she'enoi oived alekim, yoiser gadol hanefila shaloi mei ha'avain shal isha amayni she'enoi surmei Ra. Sometimes the blemish of lacking in asay toiv and lacking in being on oived alakim could be greater, and the nefillah, the fall, can be greater than the avoin shel isha hamoini. You know what isha hamoini is? The hamoini, like hamoinam. Yeah, the average person, the hamoin, the regular person who's not surmeira. You would think that the second shuva is not so important. The first one, surmeira, staying away from ra. The second one is just you're missing an asay toiv. Okay. But he says, but the truth is that sometimes it's the other way. Somebody's neshama is gavaya, so the lack of asay toiv could be a much greater nefillah, much greater blemish than the sin of surmeira of the ordinary person. What's lacking is the oived alakim. Now, just to understand what he means by the words oived alakim, I want to do 3 lines from the Hagav, the Tzemach Tzedek, where he explains the words oived alakim on the top of the same column, line number 2. V'zeu pirish vinyan oived alakim amavur b'sefer shel bein and perek tesvav. You have the expression always, he's an oived alakim. It comes from a pasuk in Malachi. U'shaftem u'reisem bein sadik l'rasha bein oived alakim la'ashaloi avoda. What does oived alakim mean literally? He serves Hashem. But when you think of the word oived, what does it mean? We translate he serves Hashem. The word alakim is used. Not oived avaya, oived alakim, and the word oived is used. So he says, Shuhu miloshen oiris avudim. The word oived actually comes from the word you have in halachas of Shabbos, ma'abed. Ma'abed is tannery. You take skin of an animal, the hide, and you have to work it out. It's called oiris avudim in halacha. And it's a very intense process. Trampling on it, stepping on it. Today they use it, obviously they do it with machinery. But in halacha, there's a concept of going back and forth, stepping on it, either yourself or with an animal, until it becomes fertile to be able to develop it and cultivate it, whether you want to make tefillin from it, or lahavdil, you want to make shoes from it, or you want to make a leather suitcase from it, whatever it is, but that's called oiris avodim. And then it has to be salted and the various chemicals. So oived alakim is from the word ma'abed, oiris. He works it through. What's pshat? So oived alakim means that you work through your oived, just like you take a raw material of oir, the hide of an animal, the skin of an animal, which is not ready to be turned into tefillin. But you have to work it through, press it out, work it, be it ma'abed, tannery, until it becomes transformed. So in avodah, this means the oived alakim, that the person works and is mesaken the hester, hanimshech mat tzimtzum the shem alakim, the concealment that comes because of the restriction, the tzimtzum, the withdrawal, the condensing, the limitation that shem alakim creates. By the person who toils himself in asay toiv to go the extra mile, even if the yetzer or the teva says no. When a person not only does not, but a person engages in the positive, to go beyond. When you really appreciate somebody, so how do you know? You go the extra mile, you go beyond. Sometimes I'll do something only if it fits mamash with my comfort zone. But the ability to be able to go the extra mile. My Yitzhahara says I'm not in the mood. But I battle it, I transcend it. I go beyond that. So kivayachol, it does not just I go beyond my own teva. It creates a change in the cosmos. It's oived alakim. Because alakim is what creates the restrictions of nature and the concealments of nature. And a person who goes beyond that, a person who pierces through the concealment and is ready to go beyond. Just like you have take an exercise, for example. What makes it successful? Makes it successful is if a person does the same thing every single day for 20 years, there's not going to be growth. Your train always needs that challenge, right? You have to overcome that challenge. Well, I overcame a challenge yesterday. But if you want to grow, you have to overcome. But my body says I have to stop. That only means that you have to go further. Because the comfort zone, the laziness will always say you have to stop. Because it's going to be toil, it's going to be effort. But it's in the toil and the effort that you open up new channels that you didn't know existed. So if you only stick to the comfort zone, to what the teva or the yetzer says, this is easy. So you remain very limited. You remain in that box. And it's true in any field, in any art, in anything, right? There is that, this is where I am, I'm comfortable. To stretch. Stretching is painful, but it's not painful because it's destructive. It's painful because it's constructive, because you're going beyond the limit. All limits in the world are rooted in Elokim. All limits in the world are rooted in the first limit, the beginning. The Rebbeinu Shalom took infinity and he compressed it. What's Oved Elokim? Oved Elokim is the Shinui HaTeva. Every time a Jew goes out of his comfort zone, in any area, to go beyond the Teva, beyond the Yetzer, you're Oved Elokim. You transform the Hester of Elokim to open it up to something deeper. So it's not just a little change in me that I went out of my comfort zone. In the whole cosmos, there's a shinui, kivayachal and shem Elokim. That's the definition of Oved Elokim. Right. Working God, not serving God. I would say working God, it's working through the tzimtzum of Elokim, yeah. Now Elokim is the whole Yesod of Mamala Kalalman. That's what creates the world. Elokim is what creates Teva. That's what creates the world. It creates the structures of the universe. Everything has its Teva, its nature, its chemistry. We live in a world of Elokim, right? We don't live in a world of, we live in a world of Teva, but that's the Oved Elokim. Is always, I have to ask myself, am I becoming a victim of the Tzimtzum, or I'm here to transcend the Tzimtzum, to pierce through the Tzimtzum? And it exists on every single level, wherever a person is. That's the second Shuvah. Asay Toiv. That's what he says. Shekamokin mamshech hayedeze yichud elyon. The shemesh u'mogen avaya lekim shlayastin amogen vanartik. What a person does in his own life, every person is a microcosm of the entire reality. Olam katan zeha adam. You are, I am a miniature universe. So it's not just I do it within myself. It creates what's called a yichud elyon of shemesh u'mogen Hashem alekim. The pasuk says in Tehillim, Kapitel Pei Dalet, Ki shemesh u'mogen Hashem Elokim. So the literal translation is Hashem, or like they'll say in English, God, the Lord is a sun and a protection. But the Balatanya always teaches, no, shemesh u'mogen Hashem Elokim. What the mogen is to the shemesh, Elokim is to Yud Kei Vav Kei. The shemesh has what's called a nartek, a sheath, right? It it protects it, like a shield that protects it, so that the light and the heat is not so intense. That's what Elokim is for Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's the mogen for the shemesh. B'shas, a Jew is Oved Elokim, so it creates the unity of shemesh or mogen Hashem Elokim. Shalayastir mogen va'anartik. It shouldn't create such a concealment. Uke'inyan shiluv adna ba'havaya. This is a concept in Kabbalah called integrating l'shalev shem adna, which is adon malchus with Yud Kei Vav Kei, u'mematkim hagvuris b'chsadim shazeu ikin inyan hayichud. And the gvuris, which represents the concealments, become sweetened by the chasadim, by the kindness, which is the primary yichud that is relevant. This is all the asay toiv, that I go beyond the atzlus. It's not just a checklist. I go beyond the tzimtzum, beyond the Elokim, beyond my limitation, and asay toiv. That's the second concept here of tshuva. So that's what he can. Yeah, of course. Surmeirai said the first thing. But it's interesting. Surmeirai, the Balatanya said, is enough Elokim. Surmeirai is enough just Elokim. It does, but very often Surmeida really means that you're just aligned with your natural energy. Surmeida means I stay away from things that are harmful, that are destructive. Kivayachal lahavdil, an animal does that. It's just an animal, it's programmed. A healthy animal doesn't jump into fire. A healthy animal doesn't eat things, usually. Unless it's not mafchin, they always tell you, don't feed the wildlife when you come. Because they're not mafchin, they're starving. Yeah. So I always say, you never saw somebody goes over to a sheep and says, here's ice cream, and the sheep says, I would love it, but next week there's a wedding, I have to look good in the pictures. Yeah. Somehow they're happy with the grass and the hay, the same as with the cows and so forth. Humans are interesting people. All of nature is based on three things. All of nature follows three rules. And that is self-preservation, propagation, produce the new generation, and doing what you have to do for your environment. Every insect, every animal, every tree, every bush, they give us oxygen to be able to breathe. The trees, they make sure they're alive. They do whatever they have to do. The roots will go very far extremes. The leaves will fight to get their light, to get their sunlight. Instinctive in every creation in our world is the yearning for self-preservation. I want to exist. Look at a bug. Look what a mosquito does when you trap it. It will do anything according to its capacity and imagination, the mosquito's imagination, to protect itself. Sometimes it's Mesiris Nefesh, bees, right? If somebody comes into the beehive, they know they're dying, but to protect the queen, to protect the beehive, they'll die. It's instinctive. You don't call it Mesiris Nefesh, it's programmed into them. Self-preservation. And then there is protecting the family, which is all part of self-preservation, but they want to reproduce. It's a fascinating thing. I mean, it's not for this shir right now. The Rabbi Shalom implanted in every single tree that exists, in every single vegetable, in every single plant and bush, a mechanism to figure out how to create the next generation, how to get the seeds to come back into the earth to start a new generation. And it's haflu afela. Everyone has a different shtick. A different shtick. Take, for example, a peach. If you take out the pit of a peach, right? You ever try to crack it? It's almost impossible. The pit of a peach, you can't crack it. There's one thing that cracks it very easily. You put it in the earth. You put it in the earth, then it opens up. Why? Because the seeds are there. It's protecting the seeds. Now today we have garbage cans. Amoli didn't have garbage cans. You ate a peach, and you threw the pit on the ground, on the earth, and that's exactly where it wanted to be. The earth opens it up, the seeds are now there, a new peach tree grows. And everyone has its own mechanism. Sometimes it's impossible for the seeds to go into the earth. So there's winds that take it, and there's waters that transfer it. There's birds, cross-pollination, v'chuli v'chuli. Yeah. And then there is how it helps its environment. Sur Meira basically represents a person that lives a life that's aligned with self-preservation, self-propagation, and doing what I have to do that the world should be a good place. Not giving in to urges that do not promote any of these three things. What we're talking here, Asay Tov, is I go the extra mile. It's the positive relationship. That's why over here he brings in that concept of Oved Elikim. You Tov what I'm saying or not really? Right. Yeah, we're not the checklist. Like he says, atzlos. It's the passionate relationship. So that's where the Balatanya now continues after the Haggadah of the Tzemach Tzedek, that when somebody's in a higher madrega, the blemish is deeper. When somebody's neshama is higher, the lack of asay tov, the lack of oved elikim, is a deeper blemish, and his nefillah, his fall, can be a deeper nefillah than the ish hamoini, than the average person who's not a somera. The pasuk says, Ki adam eitz hasada. A person is the tree of the field. In Parshas Shoftim, Ki adam eitz hasada. The pasuk actually says it as a question. Ki adam eitz hasada. Why would you allow a tree to get destroyed in a time of war? Is the tree the enemy? Like, what do you have to destroy a tree? Ki adam eitz hasada. You're fighting a war. What do you want from the tree? That's where the Torah is very cautious about protecting the world, protecting nature, protecting the tree, and so forth. Yiddishkeit is sensitive to the fact that we're responsible for the world. We are stewards of the world. So therefore, that's the pashtus. But the Chazal already, Meseches Tainis and many places, say it as a statement. Ki adam eitz hasad. A person is compared to the tree of the field. Upirish b'zoyah chela gimel daf reish beis shebchinas shayrish nishmas ha'adam upchinas eitz da'usada sheberachi Hashem. That the shayrish, the source of a neshama of a person, is called an eitz, a tree. What Yitzchak says, that he smells Yaakov Avinu, he's like the Reach Sada, like the field that Hashem blessed. Ein Sham, look there in Zohar, Pirush Ramaz, the commentary of Rabbi Moshe Zakuta, one of the great Mekabalim, who wrote a Pirush on the Zohar. V'hinei, based on this, Al Derech Moshe, let's give a Moshe. Eitz Oisepri, if you look at a fruit tree, a tree that produces fruit, Yesh Bei Peiris Shalamata Samach La'aretz. There are Peiris fruits that grow on the bottom of the tree that are lower to the ground, close to the ground. V'yesh Bei Peiris Shalamayla. There are fruits that are up on the tree. And then you have Gavoya Me'al Gavoya, higher and higher and higher. Yeah. Stam, the Mittler Rebbe, in his transcript of the Maimah adds, he says that you see that usually the fruits that are higher are better. In quality and caliber, he says in most cases the peiros are better. So he says Gavoya Me'al Gavoya goes higher. V'hinei, ha-peiros shalamayla, the fruits on the above, all the way on top, im shem el yoinim yoiser, even though they're higher physically, they're in a higher place, and in caliber and quality they're usually superior. You have in Maseches Menachos how they used to take the olive oil, how they used to make oil from the olives, right? So there's the oil that they needed for Menachos, there's the oil that they needed for Menorah. So there's different levels. So he says, Megargeroi berosh hazayis. Megargeroi berosh hazayis. You wanted to go to the top of the olive tree to get your certain olives to produce the finest and best oil. So you have the peiros shalamayla elyonim yoser. They're higher. They're when there is a storm, a ruach is a thunderstorm, a big wind, or a tsunami, a ruach, a very strong wind, comes and uproots the fruits, and they fall. Azai heim noiflim lamata b'merchik me'ilon yoisim inoisin agdelim lamata. Those that are on top of the tree, as a result of the storm, when you come back after the storm and you survey, where are my fruits? So the fruits that were on the bottom of the tree, you'll find all around the tree. The fruits that were on top of the tree, you could run a mile or two or more. Because as they fall off naturally, because they're on top of the tree, so they're scattered much further from the tree. Azayim noiflim lamata b'merchik me'ilon yoiser menoisin agdelim lamata. Sha'av kisha noiflim la'aretz ein noiflim b'merchik kolkach. Those who fall, and they're lower, even when they fall, they become detached, it's usually not so remote. This is the depth of what the Gemara has an expression in Maseches Chagiga Daf Hey. May igri rama lebira mikta. Igri is a roof. Rama is tall, elevated. Bira is a pit. A mikta is a deep pit, the abyss. May igri rama lebira mikta is not just a fact, it's haba hatalia. Because you were on igri rama, because you were so high, so then when the fall is bira mikta. When somebody falls, Khalila, from a very elevated place, so obviously the damage is a completely different damage. The distance is a completely different distance. The bira mikta, the nefilas from the igri rama, it doesn't go stam to the ground. It goes into a bur, a cistern, a pit, and a mikta very deep. Al derech zamr razal, this is what the Chazal say in the Medrash, in Bereshis, I think it's about the Nachash. Lefigdulasoi haya mapalasoi. His mapala is always commensurate with his greatness. In other words, somebody who's great, when they fall, it's a different type of fall. Because when such greatness crashes, it's a different crash. Because the whole intensity, the whole power, the whole greatness that was there is now in the mapala. It's a different type of defeat, it's a different type of fall. Mapala comes from the word nefila, like neufel. The nefila is a different nefila. Lefi gdulasa mapalas. V'kachu b'inyan peiros ha'ila. The same is true in the spiritual fruits of the tree. Eitz achayim shehem hanashamas. The same exact metaphor is true in souls. Kehina Yisrael ala b'machshava. The Medrash says in Bereshis, Yisrael, the neshamas of the Jews, ala b'machshava, they ascended kevayachal in Hashem's thought. Umasho l'mayla b'madrega nefili l'mata yos. You have the whole world comes from Dibur. Yisrael Alu, the neshamas of Yisrael come from the highest place in Machshava. And the klal is whatever is higher, when it falls, the nefila is always much lower. It's haba hatalia. Because it's so high, it's so powerful, there's so much potential there, there's so much greatness, So it's like the fruits on top of the tree. The fruits that are on the bottom of the tree, they fall down, they fall around the tree, but the fruits on top of the tree, when they fall, they go much further. So when you see the distance, on one level you could look at it and see distance. But if you understand what's really happening, is because it was so high on the tree, it was so elevated in the tree, that's why the nefillah can't just be a stam nefillah. The nefillah is a very far distance. The same is true b'chlal in neshamas. Neshamas Yisrael olu b'machshava. So therefore when the Jewish soul falls, it's a different type of fall. When greatness explodes, when greatness loses itself, so now the energy of greatness is distorted. And when energy of greatness is distorted, it's a whole different distortion.
Why are you saying this in the second tshuva? When you speak for the part of the first tshuva?
It's true in the first tshuva also, of course. It's true, he's b'chlal distinguishing why a Jewish soul could make a churban like no other soul. Like no other soul.
That's the first tshuva.
Also, yeah. But he wants to say, sometimes you look at the second tshuva and it looks not so significant, not so valuable, not so important. So that's what he's saying. You always have to know what type of neshama it is. Sometimes a deeper neshama, what seems like a nefillah relative to another person, it's not such a nefillah, but relative to this neshama, because it's such a high neshama, so even a nefillah that would seem, yeah, this is a low fruit, it fell. This is a high fruit, it fell. The fall was from a high fruit. It's a different type of nefillah. But because of its greatness, it can have a deeper nefillah than anything else. That's what he means to say. No, he's just bavodaning that one shouldn't make light of it. One shouldn't think it. He'll explain. We'll get back. He's going to explain. Sometimes when you see how far a person could fall, that itself shows you the greatness. The potential greatness. Because if there wouldn't be such greatness, then the nefillah couldn't be so... An animal, for example, can do animalistic stuff. But there's certain things animals won't do. Even devouring animals, lionesses, they do, they're hungry, they take care of themselves. You see people, unfortunately Jews have seen this throughout history, especially 70, 80 years ago. In Eastern Europe, I don't have to go back 70, 80 years ago. You could also go to certain countries today. The cruelty of people was such that to call them animals is an insult for animals. Like, why would you insult animals? Wouldn't do this. Animals want to protect themselves, I understand, but they weren't trying to protect themselves. The cruelty that people are shaykh. Viktor Frankl was in Auschwitz. He has a book called Man's Search for Meaning, right? So he writes over there a line. He says, it was human beings who created the gas chambers, and it was human beings who went into the gas chambers with the prayers of Shema Yisrael on their lips. That's what he writes. He was a secular Jew. He married a non-Jewish woman. But that's what he writes. Human beings. It was human beings who created the gas chambers. It was human beings who walked into those gas chambers. You know, he was there for quite a long time in Auschwitz. He survived. How does a human being fall so low? Because when a human falls, it's a different type of fall. It's a different type of nefillah. Within human beings themselves, you have higher neshamas. And when such a neshama falls, it's a different type of nefillah. You're on Igri Rama. The fall is not a simple fall, it's Bira Mikta. The crash is a much heavier crash. When a billionaire loses his money and crashes, it's a different type of crash than when a schnorrer crashes, yeah? It's a different nefillah. Lefi gdulasa kach mapalasa. That's also the pshat the Gemara in Sukkah. Kol hagadol mechaveirei, yitzroi gadol. Somebody who's greater, the temptations are greater, the challenges are greater. Because everything is zelu umazeh. When you have a tremendous potential, the opposition to that potential is going to be much more powerful, because the potential is powerful. And therefore when the Yetzer takes over, It's powerful. It's always commensurate. Everything is elu mazah. And that's the fall. The fall from the Peiris Ha'ilon, you fall much further. If I would have been on a much lower level, I fall. Okay, I'm around the tree. You can get back up. You can get back up. But this nefillah, it looks very far. But the distance, it shouldn't deceive you. The distance is only coming because how close, how connected, how deep, how much potential there is. So you could look at the negative. You can also see what the potential is from that gufa. And in souls themselves, you have Neshamas Yisrael. Neshamas Yisrael, Aldo b'machshava. Because it's Aldo b'machshava. To give a dugma, in our generation, we have a very good example for this. It's called nuclear energy. Nuclear energy, yeah? You know how small an atom is? They used to think that power in the world comes from numbers. You have a big army, you have power. The more kamos, the more numbers, the more quantity, the more power. Jews are atam amat mikol ha'amim. It's a little tiny nation. 14 million people, 15 million people. It's like a joke. I told you once that the number of Jews is smaller than a statistical error on a Chinese census. The Hearst? That's the truth. Yeah? It's not a joke. A statistical census, an error on a Chinese census.
Somebody once said if all the Chinese would turn around and spit at us, we'd get
Drown. Yeah. And it's not a fluke. Moshe says, Ki atem ma'at mikol ha'amim. You're the smallest of all the nations, and it remains that way. It remains that way. And it's not just small, a little relative. It's quite small. It's not like we constitute 2% of humanity, 5%, 10%, also small. We don't constitute 1%. We don't constitute 0.5%. We don't constitute 0.25%. People don't realize this. Just taka munsi, Shena Kehilla, Kenayin Hara, Kein Yirbu, and Asach Yidin, Baruch Hashem. We don't constitute 1/4%. You look, you have 2.7 billion Catholics or Christians and 1.7 billion Muslims and 1.2 billion Chinese, and as I'm speaking, another million were born during the Chassidus Shir. And for Jews, we're fighting for everyone. So often you look, Atem Amat Mikol Ha'amim, it's tiny. So for many history, it was looked, strength comes with numbers. We call this generation, they called it the atomic age. What's the chiddush of the atomic age? It's not just that the Manhattan Project managed to produce the atomic energy and the atomic bombs that stopped the war between America and Japan in 1945 when Truman dropped the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's called an atomic age. And the biggest concerns today, for example, with Iran, it was the nuclear energy. What is it? What is it? It's a splitting of an atom. You can't even describe how tiny an atom is. We don't even have a hasaga how tiny it is. Because the tiniest thing in the world, give me the tiniest thing in the world. It's not even, an atom is not a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. To describe how many items is in the point of a needle, how many atoms in the point of a pinky, is beyond what you can imagine, the zeros that you have to put after the one. But it's not a question of numbers, it's a question of unleashing the potential that's inside. And when you get to that point, the atomic level, and you unleash the potential, it can destroy Khalila a world, can destroy a country in an hour, in a minute. And conversely as well. The power of what it can do, its potential. The question is not how big, how small. The question is how deep. What's inside of it? Neshamas Yisrael ola b'machshava. Neshamas Yisrael ola b'machshava. I don't know if you ever thought about it. If you would stand up and have to fight a gorilla or chimpanzee, right? You know who would win, right? You have to fight a cheetah, you have to fight a tiger. Why don't we control the universe? Why don't they control? I mean, go to an alley, why don't we make a competition like David and Goliath, yeah? And you know who's going to win the wrestling between you and a chimp. We all know. Don't start up with them. You ever saw those chavra? Huh? They walk around as a... Why do we control the world? Why don't they control the world? Power is control. Control is power. The answer is, we have a little brain. 2 pounds. 2 little pounds, like a jello. I was like, up here. They also have a brain up there. But our DNA has a little tiny mutation that the evolutionary scientists like to call the cognitive revolution, that at some point there was some cognitive revolution and somehow the brain went through a mutation and we started to think in terms of poetry and landing on the moon. However they explain it, it's strange stuff, but we call it Tselem Elokim. Yeah, by uns we call it. What is it? What is it? Come on! And if you would put that brain in front of the chimpanzee, what is he going to do with it? But because of that, we control the whole world. We control the whole world. The power of speech, the power of cognition, the power of cooperation, the power to build tools, the power to build destructive and constructive. So it's not a question of what looks big. It's a question of how deep you're tapping into. Neshamas Yisrael Ola b'machshava. If something is nuclear energy, it could be tiny. It's irrelevant. But if it's unleashed, whether constructively or destructively, it's a whole different impact. The same is true with neshamas themselves. It's a whole different b'china. If you understand your typhus, it's very important ideas. This also explains the concept of Shviras HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels of Olam HaTorah, the world of chaos. Bekitzer Nimritz, we learned about this a few times, but Bekitzer, very Bekitzer, we know, the Arizal teaches, and Kabbalah it's taught that before this world was created, there was another world called Olam HaTorah, the world of chaos. The world of chaos, there was a Shvira. The language in Kabbalah is that in Toihu, the Eiris were merubim and the Kalim were muatim. The lights were strong and the vessels were small. And the intensity of the light broke the vessels, smashed the vessels. And as a result of that, the Olam HaTorah was destroyed. The Oir could not stay because the Kalim broke. And shards of vessels got splintered and scattered with little sparks of Oir, and that's called Birur HaNetzutzes. And on the debris of Toyu was built a new world of Tikkun where there's integration. So it's called the breaking of the vessels of the world of Toyu. What do you see there? That which in its shirish is higher fell much lower because it was higher. That's why vegetation, produce, gives life to all animals. Animals eat produce. And the animal gives life to the human. Because in their shayrish they were higher. So when they fell into a lower form of life. If all animals were gone, the vegetation and the produce wouldn't all die. They live, they need their sunlight, they need their water, they need their ear, etc. But if there was no tzemeach, there would be no balei chayim. They couldn't live. They need to be able to live. So the tzemeach could live without balei chayim. Balei chayim can't live without tzemeach. Let's say there were no people. Would animals be here? Of course, they would be wonderful. We wouldn't be stealing all their jungles and building houses and intruding into their territories and endangering all the species and killing out the elephants for their tusks. They would be very happy, balei chayim, without us. We're a nuisance. But what if we, great human beings, wouldn't have animals and earth and tzemeach? How would you live? Whether you're a vegan or a vegetarian, or you eat meat or chicken, you can't live, or fish. We need them. They don't need us. Fish don't need us. They're perfectly fine without us. They would be happy if we don't throw our plastic into their oceans. Don't worry, I'm not going to give a lecture on climate change now. So you see how it works? The Tzameach are fine without anybody. The Balei Chayim need them. The Balei Chayim need the Tzameach. They don't need us. We need everybody. And yet we control everybody. So the Baal HaTanya says it's Haba HaTalya. They came down, they fell down into a lower form of life because in their Shoirish and Toyu they're really higher. And whatever is higher, when it goes through a Nefilah, it falls down lower. And that's the definition of a Nefilah. There's a difference between Hishtalshalus and Nefilah. Hishtalshalus means a process that develops, like the word Shalshelis, a chain. A Nefilah means a traumatic fall, like a fall. The difference is when something evolves, Hishtalshalus, so its greatness comes down into the next level because it develops. It's just condensed. When there's a Nefilah, it's the other way around. That which was greater falls in a deeper way. So now it actually becomes lower than that which was lower in the higher level because the Nefilah transforms it. V'lachein, habgam shel haneshama ha'alyoina, mishu talmid chacham, ma shepoigim v'asei toiv, gadol avoyna yoser min ha'oven mamash shel ha'meyaretz. This is a very heavy idea. So the blemish of a great neshama, somebody who's a real talmid chacham, somebody who's a high neshama, his blemish in asei toiv could be much deeper than the avoin mamash, than a real sin of an amaretz. Because if the neshama is rooted in a very deep place, so that neglect, that nefilah could be much more devastating and more catastrophic. V'chein mashma begemara yuma perikem ekvon daf peivav gegein anodim azgin chuli ein sham. This is the mashmos in Gemara in Yuma. You know what he's talking about? Which Gemara? With Chilul Hashem, I think, huh? Huh? Yeah, and buying in a store on credit, right? One of the Amirayim said, I go to a store and I buy on credit, it's a Chilul Hashem. Everybody buys on credit. In other words, it's always based on who you are. When a person, that's what he says, V'chei mashma begemara, it's not stam a superficial thing that what people are going to say because they look at you more. It's much deeper. A small blemish, like you have it in a tree also. You make a little blemish in the root, it affects the tree later much more than if you make a blemish in the trunk. Why? Because you went to the source. You take a root, you damage the root a little bit, a little damage, and the whole tree is affected. You put a scratch in the trunk or in the branch, there's a scratch in that branch. The deeper something is, the more rooted it is. So a little b'gam, it's nothing relatively. But where did you do it? Because you did it in such a deep place, so therefore its effect is much more devastating. So that's why in Masechta Yuma, he goes over there through different things that the Amirayim said, that this behavior for me is devastating, it's inappropriate, even though for others it's not a big deal. Because hakol lefi ha'mavayish v'hamizbayish. You have it? Chlakukta. It's good to quote. Yeah. This is Yuma Pevavim at Beis. You went to Yuma Pevavim at Beis? Oh, Amar Aleph, sorry, yeah. Yeah, so he says Azoi. Hey Chidam Chilul Hashem. So Rav said, I go to the marketplace, I buy meat from the butcher, and I don't pay him right away. Chilul Hashem. Rabbi Yochanan said, Gegoyna na de mazgina arba ames beloy Torah beloy tefillin. Rabbi Yochanan says, I walk 4 amas without Torah and without tefillin. That's not fair. Person walks 4 amas without Torah, without tefillin. So Rashi says, the Rashi here, the Mefarshim say, people don't know that I'm weak. I also need a break. And they learned from me to be mevatel Torah. So now the pashtus it is, a person who's in a state of leadership, everyone is looking at him. So therefore he has to be very careful. So why does the Baal Tanya say v'chein mashma? Because he's teaching the Gemara, I think, a little deeper. It's not just Rabbi Yochanan is saying everybody's looking at me, so therefore I just have to always think 100 times how they're going to interpret it. Huh? It's an inyan pnimi. It's an inyan pnimi. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan was in a different place. So something that for another person is not such a pgam, for him is taka a deep pgam. It's a whole different type of blemish. That's what he says. So it's not just, so don't look, and what if I'm private? It's not if I'm private or I'm public. On a shama that's very deep, the pgam is a different pgam, even if it's a small thing. And the truth is that we also know it with ourselves. Whenever there's a close connection and there's a deep dependency and reliance, a small thing could become much more significant than in another situation a big thing. An example, and maybe a funny example. You put in a call to me. You put in a call, yeah? I don't call back for 3 days. Call back 3 days later. Okay, thank you. What do you say? Thank you for returning my call. I'm not talking pikuach now. Call, whatever. Thank you for returning your call. What if my wife puts in a call to me and I call back 3 days later? She's not going to say thank you for returning the call. Yeah? How you talking? What's the difference? Don't try it at home. 3 days later, I return the call. Was willst du? Again, I'm not talking about pikuach nefesh, but everything is pikuach nefesh, right? Becomes your pikuach nefesh if you didn't return the call in 3 days. But the real havana is, if I'm very close to you, and I'm dependable, and you're dependable, and I rely on you, so then the expectations are deeper expectations. You'll say, and a little subtle thing could be more devastating for the relationship than a stranger doing something big, because the connection is much deeper, the intimacy is much deeper. So you'll say, yeah, but it's nothing. But it affects a very deep place. Because it affects a very deep place, so therefore it's a whole different experience. The results are very different. And that's why sometimes the tshuva nasei tov has to be a deeper tshuva. It's not a contradiction to what the Gemara says in Yuma. Tak over there also, daf pevav. Over adam al mitzvah sasei v'shav loy zaz b'shamat shamaychelen loy. Mashenkin beloysis said the tshuva toile v'yem akipura mechaper. The nimtze l'chayre shal mitzvah sasei and sarich tshuva kol kach kama aloysas. The Gemara says the difference between a mitzvah's essay and a mitzvah's lysis. A person transgresses a mitzvah's essay. I didn't do something. It says you don't move until they forgive you. You do tshuva, you forgive. A mitzvah's lysis, if I did something that I'm not allowed to do, it says tshuva hangs, it's suspended, and you have to wait for Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur atones. What do we see from here? That mitzvah's essay doesn't need tshuva like a mitzvah's lysis. Mitzvah's lysis is a big thing. Let's say I ate something that I wasn't allowed to eat. I have to wait for Yom Kippur. But let's say I didn't do something I was supposed to do. Right away is mechila. So what do you see from here? That the tshuva for mitzvah's lysis is much harder than for mitzvah's lysis. Than for mitzvah's es. But if Kwan is bias, I'd be Geras HaTshuva. I already explained in the Geras HaTshuva Perek Aleph. The Masha Amru Razal is Zaz Misham At Shamoichen Loi, Hainu Shamoichen Loi HaOynish, Aval Mikol Makoim HaOyr Neder. There's no penalty, but the light is missing. That you don't get back. There shouldn't be a kula, a leniency for mitzvahs. Which means that Moichel, I forgive you, that there's no consequences. But that what's missing was missing. You can't bring it back. The tshuva on the mitzvah is, okay, there's no consequence, there's no penalty, I forgive you. But the opportunity is gone. So don't learn the Gemara leniency in mitzvah sasa. It's not a big deal. I missed it. You missed something. The Gemara says, Mu'uvas shlo yuchal lisken, right? Bitl krishma shel shachris. But the krishma shel shachris is a mitzvah sasa. You didn't do it. So you do tshuva, moichel right away. But the opportunity was gone. The is missing. Mitzvahs loisasa, the word is, I actively betrayed you. So the mechila is harder because mitzvahs essay is passive. I just didn't do something. Mitzvahs loisasa, you asked me not to do it, and I went and I did it. So it's a different type of action. It's aggression, it's not passive. Mitzvahs essay, I just didn't do. Mitzvahs loisasa, I did. So yeah, wait for Yom Kippur. But over there, the mechila is complete. You did a bgam, I made a blemish, and the bgam is removed. But here, I didn't do something. That oir that I had to bring down was missing. But there is tshuva that you could bring back that light, because there's no such a thing, completely missed opportunity. You could bring back that light, but al zet tzarich lasos tshuva atzuma mimamakim krasicha Hashem. These are deeper tshuva, what's called from the depth. Utshuva zu inyan abakasha betfila baruch atah Hashem. This tshuva is what we say in davening. Baruch atah Hashem pirush habakasha shalat tshuva shal heder v'asei toiv hainu shalu huli iskasher lihidabik b'shem avaya shehu seivav kalalman abchinas makif v'hu lamayla abchinas alikeinu shabchinas mamala kalalman v'hainu kim mitzvahs esya mitzvahs loisasa tluyim b'shem havaya al kein lahamshich ha'ir animshich ha'idei ha-mitzvahs zo inyan lihidavik b'shem havaya mamash. In order to be able to fill that oil, to bring back that oil that was missed in a mitzvahs essay, it's not pshat that it's lost, but it requires a different type of tshuva. The loizaz misham atzam moichloi, to forgive you right away is, there's no consequence, I forgive you, fine. But the oil is missing. In order to bring back that oir, here the person has to be able to connect Baruch Atah Hashem before Elokeinu, beyond Elokeinu. Elokeinu, we explained, is Mamala Kalalman. That's the way Elokus is condensed in the world. But mitzvahs is Ratzon Eliyah, that's Hashem's Ratzon. It's His will, it's His intimate will. That's connected to Yud Kei Vavke, Shem Yud Kei Vavke, which is higher than Shem Elokim. So b'meila, to go back to that oir, to re-access that oir that I missed by missing the mitzvah sasai, I need to go into the Shem Havaya, the Dveikus and Shem Havaya. That's the Mimamakim Krasicha Hashem. That the Bakasha for Tshuva is to connect to the source, to Soivav Kalalman, which is beyond Mimala Kalalman, that which is beyond the world. Yud Kevavke Havaya, that's how you fixed Asei Tov. That's the Tshuva for Asei Tov. That's the tshuva not in Memale but in Soivav. The tshuva for Sur Meira is to align yourself with the true identity of the world. Stay out of the trouble that Ra represents. The tshuva for Asei Tov, when I missed it, I have to go deeper. Because that oir is missing, and the pgam could be a very deep pgam for a high neshama. I have to go to Soivav Kalalman, from which mitzvahs come from. Al derech mashin is boy begeris ha-tshuva. Sham Perek Ches, Ume'achar sheruach avro tetarem, as I tuchal nafshe loshuv ad avaya baruch hu mamash. V'lalois maila lemekayra, uladavka bayis baruch beyichud nifla. The soul can return to avaya and become one. Kamay shahisam yuchedes bayis baruch betachlis hayichud beterem shenavcha beruach pivyis baruch. The way she was one even before he blew it out into the body. Vayipach ba'apav, he exhaled. V'hainu kamay shahisa klula b'shem avaya mamash. The way the soul was included in Shem Havaya, which is beyond Mamale, that's the makar of Torah mitzvahs. when the tshuva, the person's soul, can go back to that place. That's me ma'amakim. I have to go to the deepest depths in me, to the b'china of soivav beyond the mamalei. That creates the real tshuva on mitzvahs essay, to bring back the oir that was missing. You know, in life, you go through life, you could fix a lot of things, you could fix a lot of mistakes. What about missed opportunities? And one of the greatest regrets that people have is the missed opportunities. I could say I'm sorry and we could make amends and we could do things differently, but 20 years down the drain, 15 years down the drain, 10 years down the drain, huh? There's a lot of regrets in that area. Fine, I could say I'm sorry, mikana lahaba, it's all beautiful. But the possibilities that were gone. So it's a whole different type of tshuva, this. So the tshuva, the person goes into the ma'amakim krosicha, so to speak, to the soiv of kalalman and the Jew himself or herself, the shem havaya that's beyond the shem alakim, and over there you can get back all the oir. You go to the source where Torah mitzvahs comes from. Torah mitzvahs is not rooted in Mamalei. Mamalei is the chiyus eliki, that's the engine of the universe. Torah mitzvahs comes from the transcendence of Hashem, from the soiv of kalam, that which transcends the worlds, bligvul, infinity, the ratzon aliyah. That I missed it. I did tshuva, you said I'm sorry, but the oir is missing. But the ma'amakim krosicha havaya to yudke vovke, the neshama could go back to the way it was included in the source before vayipach bap of nishmas chayim, before it went down the tzimtzum of elikim to be able to be condensed in the body. So over there, in that place, all the opportunities, all the resources could be found. So you go back to the treasure chest, to the mucker of it, and all the wholesomeness that was missing can be rediscovered there. Okay.
How do you go back?
Huh?
There's another level on top of this, right?
Baka shalom v'ratfeya.
So we're learning this now at the time.
This section, yeah.
Right. Nice coincidence, but not a coincidence, obviously. But the way it sounds like, the Alfred was saying, so you didn't say Shema that morning that time. That light is gone, that light's not yet. It's going to get to the point where it shows how to bring it back.
Oh, so in Geras HaTshuva he's saying, people think that since a mitzvah says, say you're forgiven right away, so what's the big deal?
Right. But no, we know that light did that.
So he says, yeah, that you're forgiven, but that light you missed.
Right.
So just because it says you have to, by mitzvah you have to wait for Yom Kippur because you have to clean up the blemish.
Right.
I betrayed you, let's say I did something to you, I hurt you, I have to clean up the blemish. So over there you wait for Yom Kippur. Mitzvah's essay was passive. I didn't do anything. So he says, but don't look at it as a lenient thing. What he's telling us here is, which he continues later in the Geras HaTshuva, is that there is the ability to bring back the light. But that's not the regular tshuva. The regular tshuva, I'm sorry, yeah, is important, it's great. But to be able to bring back that light that was missing, I have to be able to go to the source of that light. That light wasn't access. I have to go back to the source. Huh? Yeah, like he says, Oivad Elikim, to go beyond the Teva. Ba'arbet in the Elikim. So when a Jew goes back to that source, the source of Torah mitzvahs, which he calls here Soiv of Kalam, and Yud Vavke, not Elikim, but Yud Vavke.
But you can't do it on your own.
So that's the Mimamakim. You go over to that place. From there, all the oir can be reintroduced. All the light that was missing
so we go on. Sure.
Ah? Das ist euch Chemes. Er sagt es nicht, aber das ist euch Chemes. Als wir bekommen.
Now
He's
my
saying-
ears perked up.
He's saying if it's possible that you get even more oil.
Get more what?
More oil, more light, more energy.
By not doing.
Not by not doing, by
But
Because
you say so.
because you found you came down harder and you picked yourself up. Then we can build bakshish.
Huh?
I said you fell down, you came up harder, and you came up. You get a
Yeah.